Since Nigeria's democratic system of government began 23 years ago, there have been different policies of government with different political parties and politicians playing politics in Nigeria. This has however generated mixed feelings from people from all walks of life. The special advisor on political issues to the Imo State Governor and the Transition Monitoring Group Coordinator Delta State Chapter carpets the Nigerian policies and politics-related issues in Nigeria.
Social media, almost every Nigerian now is a political commentator. But you still find out that we are still affected by nepotism, we are still affected by religion. We are not talking about what the candidates will bring, we are talking about the faith he worships. Not minding that our constitution says Nigeria is a secular state. People make a lot of heavy weather out of faith, which shouldn't be anything to do with performance. Do Americans, do they remember that Biden is a Catholic? They don't remember. They don't remember that Trump was also Catholic. They are concerned about the dividends of democracy, the policies the ruling party or the incumbent will bring to bear. For example, in America, they're talking about immigration. They're not talking about faith.
The description of politics in Nigeria and policies is below expectation. That's my first description of it. It's below expectation because for successive 23 years unbroken democracy, we ought to have gone beyond where we are today. Then policies have not been so constant, as it were. Policies have been fluctuating, one government to another government, policies somersault every time. There's no continuity in even the policies of government, whereas government ought to be a continuum, but what we have in Nigerian policies is a somersault every time.
Policies of Nigeria do not affect the rich. It only affects the poor. It's like the policies are made to affect the poor, to strangulate the poor masses. How would you describe it, for instance, these CBN new policies, that when the poor goes against it, they come against you?
On his part, a Niger Delta youth activist described Nigerian policies as a joke, as a political advisor to the Imo State Governor called on Nigerians to be focused.
Nigeria has been a joke of centuries. This is so because over the years we've seen an interplay of old manifestos being redesigned. Old cabals of politicians reassemble themselves under different platforms of political affiliations and come back to exploit the masses.
So there are still issues that our people need to move ahead of and treat them as non sequitur in law, what we call non sequiturs, things that are of no moment. So the discourse is still not as it should be, but we have crossed the 50% margin in political discourse in Nigeria.
Meanwhile, as Nigeria prepares for the 2023 general elections, Nigerians from all walks of life are of the opinion that policies and politics will reshape the democratic system of Nigeria. From Warri in Delta State, Daily Fason reporting for Galaxy.
Yes, you're welcome back. Barrister Chime, we're looking at policies and politics. How has it been with you personally? Let's start from you, then before you now take it out. You.
Thank you so much, Mr. Wale. Let me begin by saying that politics and policies of every government is at the center of development. You know, where definitively you cannot separate policies from policies of government. It's like half full and half empty, because the politics of the politician determines the policy of the government invariably. When you look at some of the policies of this government, I want to use this government as a case study from 2015 to 2022. You would see that some of the things that are played out, some of the promises politicians made prior to 2015 were not materialized because of the kind of politics that we play. By and large, the government, in quote, may have good policies on paper, but the application of those policies is dependent on the policies of that government. Take for instance, prior to 2015, there were campaigns that Naira is going to be equivalent to dollar. A lot of employment is going to be on ground. ASU is no longer going to be on strike. But at the end of the day, we fall back. We even went below where we were at the time. So the implication is that politicians have mastered the way of pushing their own personal interests and make it look as if it's in the public interest. So they push it aside as the policy framework.
No,
but at the end of the day, it is their personal interest that sways the outcome.
Yes, I'm now not talking about personal. I said let us start from the center to the periphery.
Very well.
Right. Let us start from you, your own personal experience of government policy and politics. Either it has affected you positively or negatively.
The policy of every government affects every individual.
Your own,
the development. Yes, the way Nigeria is at the moment is the way I feel it as much. Take for instance the recent policy on the redesigning of Naira and so many other policies of this government. Of course, the government, in quotes, may have good intentions. Like I said earlier, it is not enough to have good intentions. What is more important is the ability, the political will to drive those agenda. So if a policy of government has not been properly streamlined in a way that it will affect citizens directly, I will be affected. I don't want to use myself as a yardstick how the policies of government has affected me, but the truth of the matter is that I'm part of Nigeria, I'm part of the society, I'm part of the system, and whatever policies of the government turns out to citizens, I'm directly or indirectly affected by it.
Okay, so now the second leg of it is that government comes in when they are campaigning, or when they are campaigning, they bring out electoral promises. These promises now, when they get into government, now translates into policies. But in implementing the policy, they add politics. Is that how it should be?
No, not at all.
Please.
The truth of the matter is that every politics is local. That's what they say. Every politics is local. And there are no two democracies in the world that are the same. Yeah, democracy, as we understand it in theory, is people's government, where the people determines how they are going to be governed in terms of voting credible candidates. But in reality, especially in Nigerian context, it is not always like that. So you see politicians turn all manner of promises, to citizens during electionary campaign. But at the end of the day, when they get into power, they decide to, do whatever that will interest them for their own benefit and their cronies. So, and of course, if you see the way politics have been played in Nigeria from our First Republic, it has always been people's driven. They'll make it as if people are part of that politics or policy of government. But at the end of the day, we find ourselves, but one of the major issues Nigeria has consistently been presented with is the issue of divide and rule. We have always had issues where, instead of looking at the credibility of a candidate, we start asking and interrogating where such candidates come from. Which type of religion? I listened to one of the interviews here. Which religion does the person profess?
Come from.
Issue of what political party do you belong to?
Discarding competence.
As far as I'm concerned, political parties in Nigeria do not have ideologies.
Good.
It is about their own interests. So you cannot even single out a political party and say this is what they represent, because at the end of the day, it will fall back to square one. So, but going forward, we ought to look beyond the noses, beyond our noses. We have to look the antecedent of those who are presenting themselves for election. We have to do away with politics of tribe, politics of tongue, politics of religion.
We are talking about politicians. We will now look at it now individually, because it is one person who now turn around to become a politician. His background or her background, does it matter before going out into the public?
Yes, it does.
To present itself?
It does.
Lily Livered, somebody who you can trust, or somebody who has some shady character?
No, your antecedents
Yes.
is a mirror we can look at and say this is what you have done in the past. You cannot divulge your past from the present. It's like a deductive reasoning. You start from the known to the unknown. So before you come into power, what were you doing? What is your background educationally? Because the world is moving faster than we think. Our constitution still maintains that for you to contest for even the highest office in the land, you mustn't even be a school holder. It's just for you to, you know, have at least your attendance to secondary school or primary school, as the case may be. So you see that we have not put so much attachment on the credibility of individuals, because the education plays a role. Education refines a man. When I say man, I mean man, in quote, man and woman. So we cannot, in this age and time, begin to grapple with people who are still looking for their primary or secondary school certificates, whom we cannot say this is what you have done in the past 10, 20 or 30 years, who cannot say this is the source of your income, this is where you have worked, this is the people that have been, you have represented in one way or the other. People just come from the blues and come to power, and that is where the problem is.
That change is a constant thing, and sometimes I feel it might actually be wrong when you judge people by their background, because it could actually change. Education might not mean the person will not be able to be a good leader. How about that?
No, nobody is judging them by their background. I'm saying that nobody is a success. We are not superhumans to know what is in the mind of any person. Even the devil knoweth not the thought of man. But I've said the little we can do for ourselves is to interrogate those who are presenting themselves to power and be able to make out, you know, one or two things from their previous engagements before coming to power. Because you, honestly speaking, you cannot divorce someone's environment, someone's past, from present, or what's the capacity of what the person can do, especially when he's an adult. It's usually very difficult to change an old habit. So we have to know, because Nigeria needs a credible leader. 2023 presents us with another golden opportunity to rewrite our wrongs. And that is where I also commend programs like this. We are in a festive season where everybody, you know, nobody cares about what the policies of government is all about. Currently, everybody is traveling, trying to eat and make merry. But in the midst of that, Galaxy Television still found it worthy to present society and citizens with this type of a program that will sensitize them, educate them, and constantly remind them of the need to continue to engage in election and policies of government.
Thank you. You made a statement some few seconds ago that some people will just come out from the blues. And of course, if someone comes from the blues, it means that he just comes from nowhere, the background is shaky or even very dubious, and we see them, most of them in the National Assembly, even some people who come and run as governors, the pedigree, the experience is not there. That yes, you say this is what we can attach to you as your experience before you come out now. For us to trust you. Of course, in between, the political issue will come up, they will package themselves. The question is, why is it that people are now cowed, or they can't see between the line to pick somebody who can give them quality leadership as a result of their experience?
There are so many factors responsible to that. I have said that every politics is local, and the way we play our politics determines the way people select their leaders. You cannot select leaders outside your society. Those who become leaders tomorrow are part and parcel of the society, and the way, the kind of cultural norms, the beliefs, the acceptability of certain things will also play a role in the individuals who will eventually ascend to the power. In Nigeria, for instance, our politics is still largely money-based. You cannot, no matter how credible you are, if you don't have the financial wherewithal, you are going nowhere. So you see that we are presented with limited choices, because you can't go beyond those that have been presented before us. God cannot come from heaven to present himself for election. So that money politics is also a factor. How primary elections or political parties are conducted. Because at the end of the day, we don't have individual candidates. You must come under a political platform. And whoever those political parties present is who we are going to choose from. Secondly, we also have, before now, we've had citizens who have been docile. You know, they have been sleeping over their rights in terms of being awake to the need that politics is all encompassing. Politics shouldn't be left with politicians. Citizens should embrace politics, because what citizens do determines the kind of leaders they get. So when you look at the caliber of citizens and the caliber of leaders, they are the same. In fact, yesterday I saw a video of a shop where they are selling rice this Christmas period, and 50 kg bag of rice, see somebody emptying it to remove maybe 1 or 2 painters. That's the psychology of citizens. Yes.
It's trending.
Tomorrow, somebody will say that the president or the governor, as the case may be, is not doing well. But within your own, at that level, you see the mindset of an average Nigerian. So we have to change this perception. It is. So we have, in a way, normalized abnormality. And that is where, when a politician gets to power and he will come to campaign and say he pays salary. Paying salary has become an achievement. For crying out loud, if somebody was,
or he constructs roads.
So you cannot use salary as achievement. Why would you withhold someone's salary?
Or provide classroom blocks.
You can imagine that. So we have reduced development to that level that anybody can rise up and say, this is what I have done, please vote me. And you see us voting the person.
I just want to say this before I